Hello everyone and welcome back to Football Manager 2018 and the third part of this experiment where we're taking a look at what would happen if the perfect player existed in the game. You can see on the screen where we left off last time. He'd been in the game for 5 years at this point, winning the Premier League and Europa League with Arsenal, also club captain and banging in the goals for England as well. We were just about to kick off a World Cup campaign, so it'll be interesting to see how we do. We're going to jump forward 5 years today, so we'll actually go through 2 World Cup campaigns and a European Championship, and I'm very interested in how he does for England. Do drop a like on the video if you're enjoying this experiment. It lets me know that you do want more parts to this and you don't want me to switch on to another experiment. Also subscribe to the channel. Experiment videos out just about every 2 days unless an experiment takes too long to make. You can also click the links in the description if you want to follow the channel on Twitter or support it on Patreon. I'd be really grateful to anybody willing to do that. But let's go forward now 5 years in time and see how our youngster has developed into a proper footballer at 25 years old. Well, here we are 5 years into the future. You can see at 25 years old, he's now got 97 caps and 74 goals for England, still valued at £93 million and worth 325 grand a week to the club. Still club captain from what I can tell here. He's also still got exactly the same stats that we left off before. They are not going to change until the day he retires because they are frozen at the most that we can give him. I think to start with, have a look at how we did in that first World Cup. That would be an interesting place to kick off. Well, you can see here that during the World Cup, he did get that 4th goal against Chile. In the second match, they won 3-2. He wasn't on the score sheet for that, and a 0-0 with Iran meant they went through to the second round, where they did beat Jamaica 3-1. He got another goal there, but they were beaten 1-0 by Argentina in the quarter-final stage, so more disappointment for England though. Going out at the quarter-final, still yet to make a World Cup semi-final there. Not doing too well in Division A either of the European League. And the following year, during qualification, I'm sure he must have got a lot of goals given how many he's got overall. And you can just see his name constantly flashing up there. 7-0 win there where he got 2 goals. He does like to pile on the goals against smaller teams. The following year, in the European Championship, you can see good warm-ups and then beating Turkey 1-0. Harry Kane with a goal, beating Georgia 2-0. Jadon Sancho with the 2 goals there, before being beaten 3-0 by Germany. They still managed to make it to the quarterfinals though, where they beat, or the second round rather, where they did beat Portugal 2-0. He got a goal in that match, but they were beaten by Spain despite his extra time penalty. There was an own goal in the 120th minute, denying them the penalty shootout that they almost certainly would have lost trying to make another major international semi-final. So the quarter-final curse continues to hit England here. They did well in Division A though, beating Spain, Sweden, drawing with Spain and then beating Sweden again. The following year in the World Cup qualification, they did very, very well. Beat France on penalties, which is quite nice. Jenkaldo Jr. with one of the goals there. And then in the final of the International League, beaten 3-1 by Germany. Still, Germany rubbing it salt into the wounds for England fans. Lost to Denmark to start off their World qualifying campaign, but then went on an excellent winning run. 4 goals for him against Luxembourg. He loves piling on misery. And then the following year, during the World Cup for that season, if we can get it to work properly. I'm not sure what is going on here. I've got a year too far. There we go. You can see did reasonably well in Division A Group 2. They had their friendlies warming them up for the World Cup. It's completely out of order here. Hang on. How do we get it? By date. There we go. Right, so they actually lost to Argentina 4-2. Terrible warm-up for the World Cup, actually. 3 defeats on the bounce there, and lost 4-2 to Argentina, but then beat Switzerland 3-0 before beating Senegal 5-1. 2 goals for Jenkaldo Jr. there. Beat Uzbekistan 6-0 in the World Cup second round match. A hat-trick for Jenkaldo Jr. in the World Cup second round, and beat Italy 1-0, Ricky Lawley with the goal, but then lost on penalties in the semi-final. Of course they lost on penalties, to Portugal no less. And they were knocked out, missing out on a World Cup final, but they beat Argentina 2-1 in the third place playoff. Excellent goals there late on from Rashford and Tuanzebe, winning in the 90th minute there to put themselves on the third place position and get a medal at least from the World Cup. And you can see at the moment things haven't really progressed too far since then. Gareth Southgate's still in charge of the England team though. If we have a look at his career stats over the last 5 years, we left off in the 22 season. So by the 23 season, he only got 29 goals in 51 games. Quite disappointing there. Did get 23 in 37 for Arsenal though after that. 30 in 50 for them after that. Got 38 in 58, back to his best the following year. 36 the year after that, and 36 the year after that as well. So doing very, very well for the team. If we look at the senior squad schedule going back over those years for Arsenal, in his first year, Champions League going very well there, beating Carabao Cup team Wolves to go through to the next round. Club Brugge, Porto and Lyon, not the most difficult Champions League group, I have to say. And they did get through that. They also went out of the Carabao Cup quarterfinals to Sheffield United, which is a bit embarrassing. And in the knockout stages of the Champions League, they were drawn with Dortmund. They won 4-1 away from home. They have signed Lewandowski from Dortmund, which will help. Jenkaldo Jr. on the score sheet as well. And then 2-2 at home guaranteed their place in the quarterfinals. Out of the FA Cup at the quarterfinal stage, 2-0 to United at home. Against Man City in the quarterfinals of the Champions League, 1-1 draw there. And then in the return leg, they were beaten 2-0. I went straight past it, but they were knocked out at the quarterfinal stage, so not progressing past that point in this season. The following year, still in the Champions League. Obviously, we don't know how they got on in the Premier League just yet, but we will have a look. And then made the knockout stages of that competition, losing 3-2 away in the first leg, and then winning 1-0 at home, which means they went through on away goals. And then in the quarterfinal stage, lost 1-0 away to Real Madrid, and at home they won 2-0. Jenkaldo Jr. getting a goal there, putting them into the semi-finals, where they lost 3-1 away to Atletico Madrid, and at home drew 2-2, knocked out at the semi-final stage, and unable to make another Champions League final. The following year, again, what a start to the season that is. That's just unbelievable. They must have won the league this year. Look at them. They just won't stop. Going 3-0 through to the next round of the Carabao Cup. I don't think they lost a game by this point. To the end of the year, into January, still unbeaten in all competitions. Could this be another Invincibles year? 3-1 against Southampton in the Carabao Cup semi-final first leg, 3-0 in the second leg as well. A lot of goals for Jenkaldo Jr. here. Still going. Finally, they lose to Watford 2-0. Not the team you really want to be losing your unbeaten record to, but beat Real Madrid at the Bernabeu. Jenkaldo Jr. with the goal. Famous goal for him there. I'm sure he'll remember that for a long time. 3-0 against Watford. And then winning the Carabao Cup 2-1 against United. The first bit of silverware we've confirmed that he's received in this episode. 2-1 there. He didn't score in the final, but he did win the competition. And 2-1 at home. Both goals are him there. So he has knocked Real Madrid out with all 3 goals in that tie. Through in the FA Cup, 3-1 against Chelsea as well to the semi-finals. Beat Barcelona 1-0 in the Champions League quarterfinal first leg. In the second leg, 2-1 away. Lewandowski with 2 extra time goals to knock Barcelona and Real Madrid out of the Champions League and put them into the semi-finals. They also beat Stoke 4-1 to go into the FA Cup final. They've still only lost 1 game by this point in the season. Then beat Liverpool 2-1 at home. Going to put them on a knife edge there, but that was a last-minute penalty from Santana. And in the return leg, 3-2, and I think that means they went through on away goals. Nelson and Xhaka with the goals, which means they're in another Champions League final. Can they win it? They lost the FA Cup final to Newcastle, which I don't mind. Disappointment for Jenkaldo Jr. as his former team beats him, but I'm sure he won't mind Newcastle lifting a trophy for the first time in a long time. And in the Champions League final, did they win it? They didn't. Beaten 1-0 by City. The second time in this series we've seen Arsenal beaten in the Champions League final. Jenkaldo Jr. still unable to lift the famous old trophy. The following year, again in the Champions League once more, they won the Community Shield against Newcastle. Not the match they wanted to win against Newcastle. They wanted to win the FA Cup. But through in the group stage of the Champions League for sure. Losing a lot more games this year. Drew with Porto away in the first leg, but 3-0 in the second leg, taking them comfortably through. 2 for Jenkaldo there. Through in the FA Cup quarterfinals, beat Chelsea 3-2 away in the Champions League, won 2-1 in the return fixture, 2 more for Jenkaldo Jr. Won in the FA Cup semi-final, so they have another chance at silverware. Beat Monaco 2-0 as well in the Champions League semi-final first leg, and in the return leg 2-1 away from home, so another Champions League final. If we go down, they finally won the FA Cup. Jenkaldo Jr. getting both goals, making it his FA Cup final and lifting that famous FA Cup trophy. And then in the Champions League final, beaten 2-1 by Real Madrid. He did get on the score sheet in that final, but a minute after he equalised, Vinicius Jr. got the goal for Real Madrid. So that's now 3 Champions League final defeats in this series for Jenkaldo Jr. And 4, I think, in Arsenal's history now that they've lost in the Champions League final. They just cannot win that competition. And then we're into the season from last season, the final season. They did win the Community Shield on penalties, another trophy for him there. Nice winning streak here through the group stage of the Champions League. Through in the Carabao Cup quarter-final 2-1 and out, or losing, sorry, in the first leg of the semi-final 2-1. But they didn't manage to turn it around. Still in the FA Cup though, that's still going at the moment. They did beat Cardiff in the return leg. Beat Lyon 1-0 in the Champions League knockout stage's first match. 3 in the FA Cup, and then crushed Lyon again in the return leg. 3 in the FA Cup quarter-finals. And then in the quarter-finals of the Champions League, 2-0 at home against Benfica. And 2-1 away from home as well. So into the semi-finals of the Champions League for another year, and into the final of the FA Cup for another year. They finally lost 3-1 to PSG, a huge blow there at home, no less. So lots of work to do in the return match, but they weren't able to do it, and they have been knocked out at the semi-final stage. But they did win the FA Cup. Jenkaldo Jr. with 2 more goals in the FA Cup to deliver him exactly what he wanted. Now, if we just have a look at Jenkaldo Jr.'s milestones, we'll quickly run through this from 2022 and just see anything we might have missed when looking at the rest of it. We'll also find out if he did win the Premier League. You can see he did win the Golden Shoe where we left off, was named England vice-captain. That must have been at the World Cup that he was named vice-captain. World Golden Ball runner-up, so he did not win Player of the Year that season, or the Ballon d'Or, whatever you want to call it now, but was Golden Boy for, I think, the 5th year in a row. Lots of these things coming in here in the Premier League. Supporters Player of the Year, Arsenal Best 11, top goal scorer runner-up, so no Golden Boot. Players Young Player of the Year, and broke the Arsenal record for highest average rating with 8.63 in 10 appearances in the Champions League. Best Player in Europe, winners of the Under-21 Championship, and Best Player. So he has won an international competition with England, not the one he would have wanted, but still nice to see him get success there. Lots of Player of the Months coming in. World Team of the Year for 2023 and England's seasonal best. Still not won a Ballon d'Or though, which is quite interesting. Lots more things coming in here. Players Player of the Year, Supporters Player of the Year, English Premier League Team of the Year, Golden Boot runner-up for the 2nd year in a row, but that was in the Champions League. Was named in the Dream Team, runner-up in the Community Shield, kicking into another season. World Golden Ball runner-up for the 2nd time, I think. But in the World Team of the Year, a consistent fixture of that. Nice to see an English player in there. Winner of the Carabao Cup. We knew that already. And they did win the Premier League. His 2nd Premier League title came in 2025. So there we go. Broke the Arsenal all-time record for most league goals with 178. I believe that's held by Henry. It is now held by Jenkaldo Jr. and he is surely going to stretch that out even further. Footballer of the Year for Arsenal. Lots more records here. Runners-up in the FA Cup and Champions Shield, which is disappointing. But most Player of the Match awards with 29. Runners-up in the International League as well. We saw that with England. Lots more things here. World Golden Ball runner-up as well. I'm going to have a look in a minute at who keeps pipping him to that title. But more honours coming in here. Footballer of the Year in the Premier League. Top goal scorer runner-up. FA Cup winner. Champions League runner-up. Golden Boot in the Champions League again. Winning a lot of personal honours. Best player in Europe. 3rd place in the World Cup. But he won the World Cup Golden Boot, and that is a really nice achievement for him to get because he's going to struggle to win the World Cup as an Englishman, but getting the Golden Boot like Gary Lineker did, very nice to see. Named in the Dream Team as well. A few more honours coming in for the following year. World Golden Ball runner-up again. Who is beating him to this competition every time? Footballer of the Year again for Arsenal. England's Best 11. Winners of the Premier Division for the third time in 2027. Footballer of the Year as well. Won the FA Cup, so doing a double there, which is quite nice. Supporters Player of the Year, Forward of the Season, runner-up in the Dream Team, and Best Player in Europe. So there you go. Lots and lots of awards from there, including 3 Premier League titles. If we look at the World Golden Ball, he's been missing out on it every single year. Finished second to a 34-year-old Neymar this season, which seems a bit unfair because he got more goals, more assists, and a higher average rating, yet didn't win the award. The following previous year, again, runner-up. Season before that, runner-up. Season before that, he didn't even make the top 3. Runner-up again to Griezmann the year before that, and he's not been in it before then. So missing out to Griezmann, Mbappe, Berardi and Neymar every time. It looks like it's highly unfortunate. I mean, how on earth is Berardi beating him to that one? Mbappe deserved it that year, I think. Less games, more goals, more assists. And then in this season, again, more goals, same number of assists, better average ratings. So how he's being beaten there by a couple of 30-plus-year-old players, I don't know. But he hasn't managed to win the Ballon d'Or yet, so his profile still sits at 0. And if we just look at his biography there, you can pause the screen if you want to read this, but it's very, very impressive. Transfer from Newcastle has now gone up to £58 million in value, which is a lot. You can see 12 competition wins, 3 Community Shields, 1 Carabao Cup, 2 FA Cups, a European Super Cup, Europa League, and 3 Premier League titles, and the European Under-21 Championship title as well. So very nice little record there for a player at 25. But in 5 years' time, will he win the Champions League? Will he win the Ballon d'Or? Let me know down below. Drop a like on the video if you're still enjoying this series. I'll only carry on producing these episodes if you guys are actually enjoying them. If you don't really want it, then just let me know in the comments so we can move on to a new experiment. Make sure to subscribe to the channel as well. The next part will be out in 2 days' time. That's also FYI when the sponsorship on the channel will kick in, so be prepared for that when it happens. The next part of this experiment will have an ad for about 50-60 seconds at the start of the video. And then make sure you follow me on Twitter and support the channel on Patreon if you feel so inclined. Links in the description for that. But until next time, see ya.